Everyone starts somewhere. In the case of one Mr. Bradley Duncan, his first foray into the live steam hobby was as a part of the crew behind Larry, the Maryland Blue Crab. Specifically, as the graphics designer. He did the lettering for the engine, as well as this. During that first trip to the White Creek Railroad, Brad saw a recumbent bicycle that had been converted into a 7.5-inch gauge rail bike. This bike had been brought to that meet by the Kepners, and several evenings we saw them taking that bike out for a spin. This caught Bradley's attention, and he started thinking of ways to make a rail bike of his own. He wanted something more than just a contraption he could pedal around on his own, though. He wanted something he could move freight with at White Creek Card Ops meets. I had discussed ways of doing this with Brad a few different times. I suggested he buy the book on how to build a cliché and base his frame off of that. I even drew up this diagram of what a pedal-powered locomotive might entail. However, no real progress was ever made on building this thing. In July of 2020, John LeFavor of Pacific Design Shops announced he would be putting out a model of the GE 23-ton boxcab locomotive. We shared these photos around our group. Brad was interested, but wasn't sure. To put things into perspective, I fired up a photo editor one evening, and about 2 hours later I sent Brad one of the most expensive images he has ever received. I had photoshopped a picture of the prototype 23-tonner into the paint scheme of Brad's fictional Trinidad, Denver, and Western Railroad. By the end of September of that year, Brad had purchased one of the prototype engines. Once Brad had taken delivery of his locomotive, he got to work painting it. All through February of 2021, he made a few attempts at getting the base paint down. Eventually, he was satisfied. He then added decals from Miracle Graphics. With that, TD&W D1 Scarab was born. Brad did a few test runs with the engine up on blocks, but it wouldn't be until July of 2021 when he was finally able to take his locomotive for a run. Like the Crab and many other locomotives owned by our group of friends, its first run would be at the White Creek Railroad. I had built a riding car for Brad and would deliver it to him at White Creek. I rode up with the McCutcheons that trip, and as such, Brad arrived before we did. That didn't stop him from taking his new pet for a walk, though. The next morning, I did the final assembly of the flat cars and handed Brad's car over to him. We pushed it down to the lower car barn where Scarab was parked. Brad united the two and hopped on. He was smiling ear to ear as he rode behind his own locomotive for the first time. The Scarab performed beautifully at that meet. Although it was a card ops meet, Brad was able to take 3 freight cars along with 2 riding cars and riders with little trouble. Albeit, at one point he did find himself in a bit of a pinch and had to find a creative way to get his locomotive to a charger. That, and Scarab did get a little pushy in hinting that it wanted a piece of Sam's breakfast. However, the most notable photograph taken during the meet, in my opinion, was this one. That's Jake's box cab on the left, my speeder on the right, and Scarab in the middle. All 3 pieces of equipment are owned by people in our group of friends, and the oldest one of us, as of the publishing of this video, is 27 years old. As for Brad, he is very happy with his locomotive, and expects it will serve him faithfully for years to come. There are many adventures to be had and stories to be told on the Tiny Irons. What's your live steam story?